Last time on my 216,000 mile 5 litre supercharged Range Rover, we had Bodsy come along to do a gearbox flush in order so that we could get to the bottom of my judder issue.
You feel that hesitation and the revs are jolting, the car's going.
However, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have worked.
Ah, judder. Can you see that on the rev counter?
But there's no way I'm going to give up on this car yet. And after reading lots of your comments and looking at the codes that my Think Car device is throwing up, I think it makes sense that we spend some time focusing on the engine and then supercharger.
Right, so I've done about 100 miles in the car since Bodsy came and did the flush, and well, I've definitely still got the judder, but the pickup and gear changes in general do seem better. However, after reading lots of your comments on the last video, you were all encouraging me to potentially spend a little more time focusing on the engine and supercharger. After all, when we scan it on here, after getting the engine light, we get that P0236 supercharger pressure warning. So because we're really sensible on this channel, we're going to first try a few things that cost nothing. We're going to get in here, take some things off, hopefully get to the throttle body and give that a proper clean. And then after doing some more research on the interwebs, I found out about something called the MAP sensor, not MAF sensor, MAP sensor. And apparently that can cause some issues as well. And to the best of my knowledge, there may be more than one, but I know that one of them is on the back of the engine. So potentially we'll see if we can access that and, well, I suppose clean it or see if it needs changing as well.
So engine cover off then and Jubilee clips loosened so that I can get the air filter hoses off. I'm also removing the scuttle that houses the cabin filter, as I think this would be useful when I'm trying to track down the MAP sensor later. To get to the throttle body though, you need to remove the air intake plenum, which for my pea-sized brain was easier said than done.
Right, so classic Joel, I'm a little bit stuck. So firstly I want to remove the throttle body, or at least get access to the throttle body, which I believe is in, where is it, down here, so that I can give that a clean, because, you know, maybe that's an issue. Certainly if it is dirty it won't be helping. But I can't work out how to remove this black scuttle or whatever it is that sort of holds the intakes in place. Remove this bolt here. I've disconnected the air filter boxes. So there's all these pipes sort of semi-connected, but I'm trying to just see if there's any other bolts, or maybe if I need to remove these big hoses, but that's on a constant pressure clamp, so I don't really want to remove that. There's a little connector down here. I don't know, I'm a little bit confused. So I thought then maybe I can move on to the MAP sensor, which is located, I think, somewhere at the back here. Managed to remove this plastic cover, or at least lift it, sort of lifts like that, which is quite cool. I think the MAP sensor is maybe that one there, but again, I'm not completely certain, and I don't want to go removing things at the back of the engine that I may not be able to get back in, but I think this is the MAP sensor, but I think there might also be a bolt that needs undoing, which I cannot see. So yeah, I thought obviously, oh yeah, quick, easy job, clean a couple of things, you never know, that might really help, but I just can't get to them.
So you see me here having a rummage down at the back of the engine for this MAP sensor. And well, I'm not going to lie, I can't find it. As I edit this video, I'm looking online, and some sources suggest that the MAP sensor is located on top of the throttle body itself. However, at the time, I was led to believe that it was indeed at the back of the engine. And to be totally honest with you, I still don't know. One thing I have found owning this 5 litre supercharged Ranger is that information on this particular model is fairly limited compared to the diesels. See, the majority of L322s and Range Rovers in general sold in the UK are diesel, and for this generation of car contain the fantastic 4.4 litre. Across the pond though, many of these 5 litre models were sold, however in America they also had a naturally aspirated 5 litre version, which again can confuse things when searching for specifics on this engine. So needless to say, I found it harder to source reliable diagrams and just in general good information on this particular model of L322. So let's have another go at this intake plenum though, but in the meantime, if you do know where my MAP sensors are, please comment below.
Yes, I got it off, and the good news is I can see that the throttle body is indeed extremely filthy actually. that does look very dirty, so cleaning it is certainly going to do a world of good. Also, I've noticed some leaking coolant. See the red fluid dripping here from what looks like this connector. So I don't know how well you can see it, but potentially I'll have a little look at that in a minute to see if there's anything obvious that we can do, if that is potentially where part of our coolant leak or our whole coolant leak is coming from.
So back to that coolant leak in a second, and well, you're gonna laugh. But first, the satisfying bit, let's clean up this throttle body, which is pretty filthy. I'm just using some carb cleaner that I already had in the shed and some kitchen towel to do the best job I can with the access I've got. Obviously trying to be as delicate as possible. Now, do I think this is going to solve our judder issue? Absolutely not. But it's certainly not going to make things any worse. And it's at least just one of those things that isn't contributing to emptying my bank balance.
So on the subject of trying not to lose a fortune on cars, let me tell you about today's sponsor, which is Refund Club. The FCA has confirmed that millions of UK car finance agreements between 2007 and 2021 may have been missold due to hidden commission deals between lenders and dealerships. Refund Club have built a free 60-second check which helps people find out if they might be eligible to make a claim. Now, if you are organised enough to dig out all of the financial agreements you've ever had, contact all the lenders and manage the whole process yourself, then fair enough. Personally, I know that's the sort of thing that would sit on my to-do list for the next 5 years. So basically, Refund Club handles the process for you. You enter your details, they check your agreements with lenders, and if something looks valid, it gets passed to their in-house legal team. Importantly, they only get paid if the claim is successful and after the money reaches your account. It's also worth knowing that each finance agreement is checked individually, so if you've had a few finance cars over the years, then you could have multiple claims. They cover loads of major lenders including Black Horse, Santander, Moto Novo, Mercedes Finance and Barclays. And they've also got an excellent Trustpilot rating. So if you financed a car between 2007 and 2021 and want to see if you might be eligible, then use the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to complete your free check.
Oh, shit. I thought it was leaking quite a lot of coolant. I thought that is strange because it loses coolant at a very slow rate, this car. And then I realised what I've done. What I've done is I've split a coolant pipe in half. If you see the top of this one here, you can see all the coolant just pooling in the top of the pipe. That's because I've severed it. This is the other end of the pipe here, which was in there, of course, but when I've removed the big intake scuttle, I've obviously snapped that in half. So it is true, I've found my coolant leak, but what I've actually found is a horrendous new coolant leak that I've just caused. For those of you that have been watching the channel for a little while, you'll remember that I had a BMW Z3, which I did some work on, and the exact same thing happened. I managed to sever a coolant pipe when removing, I think it was the air filter housing or something like that. Ah, shit. You f***ed it, Joel. Ah, shit. These old plastic pipes are so brittle and so easy to snap. As I always tell people, I tend to fix one thing and break two others. Seems to be my ratios at the moment. So I have at least given the throttle body a good clean, about as good as I possibly can. Got right in there, gone around the rim on the other side of the flap as well. I've just popped that down there to stop any more leaking happening. And yeah, looking at how to try and find this coolant pipe. I've had a little bit look on the internet and I have found one example of the part. However, there it is. It is no longer available, sold. 22 quid though it sold for, so that's quite reassuring. But then searching for the part elsewhere online is quite difficult. And even looking at websites like Jaguar Land Rover Classic, even Brit Part don't seem to have it. John Craddock Limited with these have the part. They have this part, but that's not the one I'm after, is it? That is different. So obviously I've caused myself a bit of trouble there, but do you know what? Because I can't put the car back together and drive it now anyway, I'm going to leave the map sense for now and do some more research on exactly where that is, because I'll be able to get to that at some point and change it. But I need to replace the expansion tank anyway, because I know I've got a faulty sensor, and actually as this coolant pipe goes straight to the expansion tank, the one that I'm going to need to replace, we might as well pull the expansion tank out whilst we're at it. So to do that, looks like we probably need to remove... Do we need to remove this? I'm not too sure. We'll have a little look anyways. And so I set about removing all the bolts that I could possibly see from this front bulkhead, including unsecuring the grille and then the headlights, before quite quickly then realising the whole thing wasn't sort of going to move out the way like I thought it might. So, not wanting the Range Rover to be sat in a million pieces in my carport, undrivable, I thought I'd swiftly put all the bolts back and wait for the expansion tank to actually arrive. After a quick coffee break, however, gladly I can say I was able to find this on JGS 4x4, genuine matching hose to the one that I'd broken, for £42 including VAT. For the expansion tank or coolant bottle itself and a new cap, the best I could find were these non-genuine parts from Malting's 4x4 for just £50 and 52p. But whilst I was busy snapping coolant lines and undoing things I didn't need to undo, happily my spark plugs had arrived. And this is a new thing for me. I've never ever changed spark plugs in any car before, so I can't compare it to anything, but on the Range Rover it does feel like there's a fairly good amount of space. Especially on this Supercharged model though, there are just so many connectors and hoses and cables that are in the way that all look rather expensive and quite brittle. Nonetheless, I quickly worked out that you just need a T30 screw to undo the ignition coils, which after going through pretty much every single type of tool in my box, I worked out that the best way was to crack them off by hand and then finish the unscrewing with my electronic screwdriver, and then after some fairly rigorous wiggling and pulling, the ignition coil pops out. This then gives us an excellent view down into the cylinder for my first victim, my first ever spark plug. I found this part actually quite satisfying and fairly straightforward. I had to order a special spark plug socket, and interestingly on this Range Rover it's a 14mm socket you need, which isn't necessarily the most common. And just like that, I was about to pop my spark plug cherry. Ah! Haha! My first ever spark plug. Ooh! I'm no expert. This is the first time I've ever removed a spark plug in my life, but that looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Look at it under the light. I don't know. That's pretty bad, no? We're going to work this out the modern way. Hello. This is the first ever spark plug I've removed. Are you proud of me?
Absolutely. I'm beaming with pride. Modern day car whisperer in the making.
Can you tell me, as I have no idea, does this look particularly worn? This spark plug? Does that look particularly bad, like it could be causing any problems?
From what I can see, it looks fairly normal for a used spark plug.
Aww.
There's some wear, but nothing screaming catastrophe.
Okay, so according to ChatGPT, this is not a particularly bad spark plug, just a worn one. It's good to see it's an NGK, which is exactly what we're replacing it with today. And is there a date on it? I'm not sure there is. The date is probably on the pack that it came in. But anyway, yeah, first spark plug ever removed. Now I've got to try and put one back in.
And the first thing I could see is that the spark plugs I ordered match the old ones. So at least today I've got one thing right. And I'm not going to lie, I got really into this. I got into a proper rhythm here. Removing spark plug after spark plug and replacing them with fresh ones, tightening them up, then torquing them. They all looked the same as that first one that I pulled out in terms of wear and tear. And then it was time to remove the final one on this bank.
Look, I'm in the cylinder.
Well done.
I'm just taking out the last spark plug on this bank.
Here it comes, do you want to see it?
Oh, that one's bad. That's what we want to see. We want to see a bad one. That looks... Oh, hang on. That's oily.
Oh, is that...
That's a bad thing. I think that's a bad thing.
I know.
You see that? That's an old one.
Yeah.
This is what they've all three have looked like there so far. This one looks like that. That's a good thing. I don't know if... I mean, if that's not a bad thing, and it's just a really bad spark plug, that's good, because that could be a problem. Well, it will be causing problems.
Fine.
Honestly, I don't know how my poor wife puts up with me, but she always takes interest and encourages me to take on these projects in the first place. So thank you, Katie. And remember, I want to get this car running well enough so that I can take her and my little one up to our favourite place in the UK. Scotland. And you can help by liking this video and leaving a comment like this one, so that Katie carries on putting up with my shit. But let me just check about that oily spark plug with the third person in our relationship.
I've just pulled out the 4th spark plug on one of the banks, I think bank 2, and it's a little bit wet, almost oily. Is that a bad thing?
A little bit of oil on a spark plug can definitely be a sign that the valve cover gasket around the spark plug tube might be leaking. It's not catastrophic, but you'll want to address it. The oil can cause misfires over time.
Okay, that's good. It probably doesn't mean the engine's about to cease to exist, but yeah, actually it makes sense, because when you do those rocker cover gaskets, it's hardest to obviously seat them at the back of the engine, and that's where the spark plug was, the one right back here. So I suppose it would make sense that the seal is leaking first at the back there.
So with one side done and the sun on its way down, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to shut up shop for the day and come back tomorrow with a fresh pair of eyes.
Okay, sit rep for you all and for me to get in my head where we are. So yesterday successfully removed and replaced 4 of the spark plugs. I torqued them up to 25 Newton meters each, which seemed about right from research. Now we're going to try the other side, which is actually a bit more difficult because there's sort of this rail in the way. But I'm confident we're going to be able to do that no problem at all. Throttle body's being cleaned, we did that the other day. I'm going to give the intakes all a thorough clean again and the plenum before that goes back on. I need to replace this coolant hose here, the one that I snapped, and then try not to re-snap it when I put the plenum back on. And then hopefully by the end of all of that, we're going to go for a drive and see if it still does the judder. I have also got a coolant bottle on order because we know that this is faulty, or at least the sensor is at the bottom, and it's better to just order the whole thing. And so focus number 1 is to see if we can do anything to eliminate or improve or find out more clues about that judder. We're just ruling things out. And in the meantime, I'm learning how to do things. I've never done spark plugs before, and I've certainly never replaced coolant bottles or anything like that. In time for the next video, I've ordered a few more things that should be interesting. I've got a smoke tester kit, which will put that through the air system, and that will tell us if there's any leaks anywhere along that air system, which is highly likely if we're having a supercharger or hesitation fault. And the other thing I've seen mentioned as well is various things to do with the supercharger itself, the couplers, the seals, even the oil in the supercharger could need a change. And so they're on the list too. And the other thing I'm trying to work out whilst I'm on a parts ordering spree is whether I have a go at doing that front left airbag myself, or whether I just take it to a garage. I am all for having a go and learning things because you have to start somewhere, but when it comes to components like brakes or suspension, I'm always a little bit reticent to sort of have a go because they're very safety critical. Having watched some stuff online, it does seem fairly straightforward to remove the airbag and replace it. A bit of a heavy and awkward job, but not something beyond the realms of my possibilities, but we'll see how this goes first. I suppose ultimately if we find out that this engine is toast or the rest of the car is toast, it's not much point spending money on suspension airbags, etc, etc. So bit by bit, I know we're not going at Matt Armstrong pace here, but I don't think that's why any of you are watching. I hope the reason you're watching is the same reason that I'm stood here right now, is because I want to see old cars like this kept on the road. This 217 almost 1,000-mile Range Rover would probably otherwise be in the scrapyard if someone like me hadn't come along, bought it and was prepared to throw time, blood, sweat, tears and money at it to get it back up to how it should be. So let's crack on with the other bank in terms of spark plugs. Then I think I'm going to replace this coolant hose because it's kind of a bit more critical, and then we'll do the oil. Wish me luck.
First things first, thankfully I remembered that the L322 has a very useful bonnet service position where you can essentially raise it to be vertical. You just have to pop out the bonnet struts and then position a little metal handle into place and it will hold. Definitely well worth doing for the extra room that it gives you. It was a little bit fiddly getting that plastic piece out the way, but it is definitely possible without removing it. Of course it's the same on this side with the T30 to remove the ignition coils and then the 14mm spark plug socket. Despite this being the more difficult side, whereas if I'm being totally honest, the first bank took me about 3 hours, I'm pleased to say I did all 4 of these spark plugs in 30 minutes.
Spark plugs done. Yes! It's the first time I've ever done spark plugs. Now I've got 8 fresh ones, hopefully properly seated, in the Supercharged Range Rover.
Haha! And just like that, I'd done it! I know for some of you watching, changing a set of spark plugs doesn't seem like much of an accomplishment at all. However, for me, it really is. I've never had anyone in my family that does this sort of thing, and I've never received any mechanical training. And through some patience, determination, and a lot of trial and error, I've managed to do something I never thought I could. And so I'm very happy, although that may well be about to change. Nonetheless, I thought before changing the oil and filter, we should get the thing put back together and switch it on to see how it runs, see if those spark plugs had made any difference, and really more just to check that everything sounded okay. Before that though, I had to change the coolant pipe, which had arrived from JGS 4x4, and I'm pleased to say was an exact fit. And despite not really having much camera footage of it, it didn't take long to fit at all. Then it was just the fairly nerve-wracking task of putting back on that air intake plenum, which when I'd removed, I'd broken the coolant pipe with. And now with the new coolant pipe in place, I wanted to be very careful as not to break it. And I think that should just about do it.
Right, so I think that's the Range Rover back together. We just need to do a quick idiot check. It looks to me like everything is clipped in. MAF sensors are back in. I've put all the plugs back in here. This connector down here is back in, that one's back in. Clipped in this finally all the way through. Put the cabin filter housing area back on. And we've got the coolant line connected with the expansion tank, which has got apparently max range in. Now you'll have to tell me in the comments, but I'd imagine because I've had the coolant lines off because I snapped one, there's probably air in the coolant system. So I think I'm gonna start the car with the coolant cap off. I don't know if that's a thing, but obviously when I replace this anyway, I'll need to bleed the coolant system properly. Just need to disconnect the trickle charger that's been on for, well, actually it's been on for a while. I've not driven this car at the time of filming this for probably about 3 weeks, because that's when I broke the coolant line. When I started this job was about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, looks like the battery's healthy. We'll unplug it first, out of here, then take the clips off. Bob's your uncle. I'll just double check in the car that I've not left any major components. There you go, look, there's a bit of rubber stripping I've left off, but there's no bolts in there, which is the main thing. And it's just, more than anything, a complete and utter mess. Like I say, I've been waiting about 3 weeks to start this car, and I'm hoping obviously that there's no issues re the spark plugs, because it's entirely possible that I've seated them incorrectly or something to that effect, and if that's the case, the engine's going to be running worse than it was before. It's a bit scary, to be honest. The date and time's gone back to 2009. Okay, yeah, ignition on, all right. Okay, holding the brake down. Oh yeah, seems nice and smooth. Check tyre pressure in the boot, that's fine. Coolant level low, that's fine. Ignition is on. That's it, okay, so no engine light or anything like that, which is good. Shall we see if anything's going on down here? Oh dear. Can you hear that? Something sounds a bit knocky, doesn't it? Oh dear. Shall I give it a rev? That's probably a really bad idea. Oh, it sounds amazing. Well, the coolant seems to be holding, which is really good. So my new coolant line seems to be doing the trick. But yeah, there is definitely a sort of knocky sound. I'll say the best word to describe that noise is clackety. It's clackety. So either I've not noticed that noise before, which is possible, or more likely I've put something on wrong, or forgot to put something on altogether. Okay, let's switch this off before it blows up. Oh dear. I'm having a lot of fun doing all this stuff myself, but it has to be said, it's
it's really difficult. I attempted this a few years ago on my Volvo XC90 to, you know, some relative level of success, but in that video I said I'll never complain about a garage's labour rates again, and I stick by that because it is bloody hard work doing this stuff on cars, and it's, you know, it's not necessarily the hardest work in the world, but it's the knowledge, sort of knowing the sort of whole puzzle so that you can work out if you've done something there that might point towards this happening, because at the moment I can only sort of follow steps and I don't necessarily know why or what they mean. So as much as this has been satisfying doing those spark plugs, I'm now a bit concerned because there's that sort of knocky, clackety noise that I haven't heard before coming from that very area. Do I take them all out and sort of check the torque specs again, or I don't know. Before I do anything else to the engine, I'm going to let you guys comment below what you think that noise is, and if you think it's fine, which it definitely isn't, I can tell you that it's probably not fine. Maybe it has got to the point where I should just take this to someone who knows what they're doing, because as much as this car doesn't owe me all that much and it's a great opportunity to learn some stuff about tooling myself, I do love it and wouldn't want to unnecessarily have it meet its early demise. Bollocks.
So excitingly, this has just turned up, which is my replacement expansion tank. And the good news is it looks like a right fit. However, after switching the car on yesterday after doing the spark plugs and hearing that nasty clacking noise, I've lost a bit of confidence, and so I don't know whether I should bother with the expansion tank, and I don't know if I should bother with doing the oil change and the oil filter as well, because, yeah, like I said, I just feel a little bit like, ugh, I've done one thing and I've probably broken something else. However, I did put a story up on my Instagram and many people replied saying it sounds exactly like the Supercharger coupler, which makes a lot of sense. When looking online at Supercharger coupler symptoms or videos with a failing one, the noise that it makes is extremely similar to the sort of clacking noise that I've got. So I am almost certain that it is the Supercharger coupler, but the thing that confuses me is when I last switched the car on a few weeks ago, before I then parked it up waiting for spark plugs and oil and all the rest of it, I don't think it was making that noise. I'd never heard it before, but we were getting that engine light with the Supercharger pressure warning. So that would also imply that there's an issue with the Supercharger. And again, many people have said that potentially that judder issue itself is caused by the Supercharger. Now, I don't think the Supercharger coupler particularly affects the performance of the Supercharger, at least not before it disintegrates anyway, and I don't think that is my judder issue, but perhaps that's why this car was sort of left where it was or went to an auction, because it was the Supercharger that was causing problems. So yet again, I feel like I've fallen into that trap of confirmation bias. First I thought it was the engine when I went to view the car, then I got all convinced it was the gearbox, and now maybe I've been barking up the wrong tree again because it's in fact the Supercharger. But listen, I do still feel like, oh, maybe I've not tightened up a spark plug properly, or maybe I dropped something into one of the cylinders and that's what the clacking noise is. But it does sound like Supercharger coupler, and that is a common issue, especially on a car of this mileage if it hasn't been done. And so I suppose hopefully I'm thinking it's that and not the fact that I've done something to break it. It's just coincidental that it happened the first time I started the car up after weeks and after doing those bits and bobs. So what I'm going to do now, because I'm not sure about fitting any more parts currently, is switch the car on, go for a little drive. Nothing crazy, but we'll just check the car is performing correctly, and then hopefully, he says hopefully, imagine hoping for an engine light, but hopefully I'll get an engine light which we can then come back home and scan. But at this point in time, I don't know what to do with this car. I want to get it running and I want to get it perfect, but whether I continue with my own hands or at this point we take it somewhere for a little bit of help.
Right, so here goes nothing. I'm just gonna make sure the bonnet's cracked. Oh, that seems a bit loose, isn't it? Oh no, don't tell me that that's just happened. You are kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. You are joking. Oh, you couldn't make this up. Bonnet cable's just literally snaps. Just snaps. Literally just then. Oh no. Okay, well listen, it doesn't stop me starting the car up, but it does stop me checking the coolant level once we get going, which obviously I want to do given the fact that we've changed it. Oh my goodness. Let's, you can make it up. All right, ignition on then. Let's listen to this startup. This is cold start. Yeah, and the revs are pretty smooth. Not completely steady, but not bad. And the engine sounds nice. Sounds really good out the back, and we never really seem to get any more of that white smoke that I was worried about when we first got the car. Gosh, we've gone through so many different panics with this thing. So obviously we can't look under here, but I can't hear the clacking, but I bet it is still there. And it's because yesterday when I started up for the first time, I had the engine cover on, the engine cover off, which I'd never really done with this car. So obviously that's probably why I'd not heard it. So that makes sense. But let's go for a little drive. I've got my scanner, we'll plug that in and yeah, just see if anything comes back up. But yeah, we're not going to go far. Oh, bloody hell, I mustn't get carried away because this thing is so nice to drive. Oh, I've missed this thing. Okay, so listen, the good news is for all intents and purposes, it's driving as normal, as it was before I started messing around with it. So that's really good. I am still expecting to get that judder, and hopefully if we drive for a few minutes, we'll get an engine light which we can then scan. You'll like this. You saw we started the car up and then I've done, half a mile in it since. The average fuel since we started the car, 4.3 miles per gallon. Listen, you don't buy one of these to get from A to B cheaply, do you? It's funny as well because the more I think about that judder issue, the more I'm like, well, does it really matter? I think I have this thing with cars in general. Well, in general, I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And with my cars, although I'm buying, the cheapest of the cheap cars, I like my cars to be perfect. I think I enjoy the process of taking something that's very much far from perfect and making it as close to perfect as I can. And so, of course, the judder is an unacceptable problem to have with this car. But actually, for what I use it for, which is running from A to B, this is sort of my daily driver. Most of my journeys, probably 80 or 90% of my journeys are under 5 miles. Is the judder actually a deal breaker? Not really. I mean, it's obviously an issue that will get worse and worse and worse and worse. But, what if the car lasts a year or two with that issue? Then, well, I've got my money's worth. And yes, the jury's still out on whether it's gearbox related, engine related, or supercharged related. In fact, I've spoken to lots of experts and it's all very much conflicted. I'd say the main two are supercharger and gearbox. The likelihood is there's a combination of both going there. I think there's an issue with my torque converter and the lock-up clutch. Oh no, I think I just hit a pigeon. Oh no. Why didn't you move? Oh, I'm sorry. It's a 40 and I'm going 30 miles an hour, so I wasn't going fast. Rest in peace, pigeon. Sorry. Anyway, I think I'm talking a lot because I'm nervous about something happening to this car. We've done about 5 miles now and no engine light. We're going up a hill here where the car would normally labour, but it's just so smooth, this thing. I love it. Right, this is a short slit road. I'm going to put the gearbox into sport. Excuse all the parts rolling around in the back there. Just up to 3,500 RPM. Very smooth, very nice. Maybe my little spark plug change has fixed everything after all. 70 miles per hour. The revs are holding nice and steady at around just under 2,000, so that's good. Okay, listen, I don't think the car's going to do any judder today. Maybe it's because the spark plugs have fixed it. You never know. We've got no engine light either, which is interesting, but we'll read the codes quickly nonetheless once we get back. The only thing I can't do is check the coolant, but I will park up and then work out how to open that bonnet another day. The only other thing I want to talk to you about really quickly is money, because obviously this is a 217 almost 1,000 mile 5 litre supercharged L322. It can only ever be worth so much, maybe £7,000, maybe £10,000 to the right person in the perfect auction. I don't really know, but I was having a look through and I've spent now about £1,000 on this car on various things. It's probably a little bit more than that, and I can't tell you exactly what it is right now without looking at my phone, but between parts and that gearbox flush, which was almost £600, it's around there or about. So it owes me £5,500. I think I wouldn't want this to owe me more than about 7, but if we can get this up and running for 7 grand,
like a dream L322, I'd be very, very happy. I think it is possible. Obviously, if the timing chains is something that the specialist says needs doing, then well, there's a discussion to be had there, because that can be upwards of £3,000, that job. I genuinely think in that case, it would either be find a way of doing it even cheaper, or just run the car until it blows up. But either way, oh, it's great, isn't it? I love this thing. It's so relaxing being deluded. Right then, let's plug in the Think car and see what it says. This thing's definitely made its money back. It's been worth its weight in gold, actually. If you are interested in getting a advanced diagnostic scanner, I'll leave a link to the one I use. It's called the Think car in the description. I believe I've still got a 10 or 15% discount code active. Let's read the engine and the trans for now and just scan and see what we find. Interesting, very interesting in fact. We've got intake air temperature sensor 1, circuit high input. Still got mass or air volume flow low input P102. And we've got the fan 2 control circuit. That intake air temperature sensor 1 is the first time I've seen that. Even more interestingly, we've got a transmission fault now. I've never had one of them, so that's curious. It doesn't look like a particularly bad one, but it says invalid data received from engine control module / powertrain control module. I'm not too sure what that means. I'm gonna have to ask my friend again really quickly. Good evening, sir. I've just taken the Range Rover out for a drive after doing the spark plugs, and we've got a new code, which is the P0113 on the engine, and a transmission code, which I've never seen before, U0401, invalid data, blah, blah, blah. What's going on, please?
All right, so P013 is basically saying your intake air temperature sensor is reading a high voltage, usually meaning it's disconnected or faulty. Now, the U401 means the transmission control module is getting some invalid data from the engine control module, likely a knock-on effect of the engine fault. First protocol, double check that intake sensor, make sure it's plugged in properly, because if it's feeling ignored, it's definitely going to throw a tantrum.
Okay, so possibly I've just left something unplugged. Let's clear these and put the car to bed. I'm going to go in there and work out how to open up this bonnet. You're going to go down there and like this video and leave it a comment. And also, if you haven't already, you're going to hopefully subscribe. I'd be really, really appreciative of that. I hope you're enjoying these Range Rover videos. I do apologise in this one that we've essentially changed some spark plugs, but the next video with this car is going to be a big one. It might be a little bit of a wait because I've just taken my M6 to the Nürburgring, so I'm going to be putting some of that content out as well. So if you're here for just the Range Rover stuff, do bear with me. It will be coming and it's going to be a big update next time round. I think we're finally going to make some real progress with this car. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you in the next one very, very soon.